Welcome everybody to the first episode of the Herbalized podcast. The idea of this podcast is to keep the world's cannabis community informed. It's coming out of Australia, so it will have an Australian slight, but definitely looking at cannabis issues around the whole world, looking at different countries, different states that have decriminalized or legalized to varying degrees, and how that is affecting whether the sky is falling. And of course, locally in Australia, looking at how the move forward in legalizing some medicinal cannabis across a couple of states, and the very beginning of a legitimized medicinal cannabis movement here in Australia, which we hope to see turn into a full recreational one. But fear not, if you're not from Australia, we'll be dealing with places from all around the world. In the pipelines, a Jamaica-specific episode, those guys having legalized cannabis there last year, 2015. Got some really interesting guests coming in for that one. We'll be chatting to some people from different states in the States, growers, dispensary workers, owners, trimmers, the whole works. We're really going to try and cover a wide range of things. But to kick it off for our first episode, I sat down with Matt Riley from the free cannabis community here in Australia. Matt's running in the local state election, which is up and coming soon. If you're in the seat of Melbourne, vote for Matt Riley. Vote 1 Matt Riley, free the herb. I'll tell you a little bit about me. My name is Tordy, or Mike. I'm from Australia, but have just returned from having travelled overseas and spent a bit of time in California, and got really very well exposed to the cannabis scene there, from north to south. And I guess I'm coming back to Australia and having a look around at not just the quality of the local cannabis, but the cannabis scene in general, and wanting to reach out to it, create something that's local and also global, and let the world know that we're not scary people, we're good people, as Matt Riley would say. I guess what I'm hoping to fill in at the start of episodes, some sponsors would be great if you're out there. I've got an honorary sponsor for this episode, and that's Seedless Clothing. They're a brand out of the US, out of San Diego, Ocean Beach. So seedlessclothing.com. Tell them you got there from the Herbalized podcast, but they are unofficial sponsors for this one, but good friends, good family, and lots of really cool cannabis stuff, t-shirts, hoodies, caps, definitely worth checking out. Where can you find us? Twitter, at 420 Herbalized, Instagram, _Herbalized_podcast, Facebook.com/Herbalized420. We're there on YouTube, where we'll be putting up podcasts, but also eventually product reviews. So again, sponsors, if you're out there, we're happy to test your equipment. We're happy to talk about it. We're happy to show it to the world, and let the world know what our honest opinion about it is. No bias thing here. So you can head on over to the Patreon website and support us there. A couple of things in the making. We're trying to get a t-shirt run on the go. More on that at the end of the episode. Also, ways for people to get involved. If you've got a business or products that you want to promote on the website, become a part of the THC shout-outs. THC, the Herbalist crew. So become a part of the crew. $4.20, the 420 commitment. $4.20 makes you part of the THC shout-outs for life. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to shoot you guys through to the actual interview. It goes for about half an hour or so. It's really cool. We sit down with Matt, who was nice enough to have me out at his place. And, he's, as I said, in the upcoming election, Matt is responsible for the 420 cannabis rally here in Melbourne that's put on every year in the Flagstaff Gardens, and is a big proponent for not just cannabis, but for the end of prohibition, and his arguments make a lot of sense. And I'll let you guys kick back, relax, get yourself sorted out, and enjoy. Okay, so I am here to kick it off, the Herbalized podcast, first episode, and we've got a great guest in, visiting the man Matt Riley today. Matt, say hello to the listeners.
Hey guys.
And for those who aren't familiar with Matt, I'm going to get him to tell you a little bit about himself, and we're just going to have a conversation here. We can kick back and discuss a few things that
that are happening in the cannabis community here in Melbourne. Talk a bit about what Matt's got planned for the future, and I'll let Matt take it from here.
Okay, well I guess the thing that I've really done is get the 420 picnics and rallies up and running, which was has been an interesting process. I remember that the very first one we did was the eve of the Victorian state election, and I remember catching the train in there, and man, I was so nervous and paranoid. Like, I was looking around, like every single person wearing a suit might have been an undercover cop waiting to arrest me. I was so paranoid. And when the actual event itself, a few people wanted to interview me, and I couldn't speak to anyone. I couldn't go on radio. I couldn't do it. And it came to 420, and I thought, oh shit, I organised this thing. At the very least, I've got to light up a joint, So I've got out the joint that I had pre-rolled, and I put it in my mouth, and the wind was blowing. I bent down to light the joint, and then I looked up, and there were 4 news cameras in my face, and I'm just, oh shit. And I thought, oh well, I've got to come up with something. So I took a big drag, and I blew out the smoke, and just about crapped myself, and of course the only person who saw it was my son's mother, and she wasn't very impressed. That's cool. But yeah, so it's been interesting. We've gone from there to the point now where we're actually, we've got a good relationship with the police, and I'm chatting with them on the phone quite regularly, and we've had, well, there's been over 100 sort of individual 420 events, and probably 20 of them have had 500 people or more.
Yeah,
so
incredible.
Some of them have been pretty big.
Yeah.
And we haven't had a single arrest, so
Yeah.
I'm really pleased with that. It's been really good.
You should be. I mean, I was at the most recent one, and it was a really relaxed, really respectful atmosphere, and it was really nice to see.
Yeah.
Virtually no police presence
Yeah,
whatsoever.
no, they didn't turn up at all at
Yeah.
the last one. I spoke to them 3 times throughout the day. They just rang up, or I rang them once, and just said, okay, there's about however many people here at the moment, and everything's cool. And
Yep.
and I was really pleased. I was actually hoping for a bigger crowd, like in my projections over
Sure.
the years.
Yeah.
This year we'll have this many, and but at the same time, there are a few things I've done over the last 6 or so months which probably reduced the size of the crowd, but it absolutely ensured that there wasn't going to be any,
Sure.
clashing vibe
Yeah.
going on, and that's how we created that.
Cool.
Total.
Well, you can't say there were things you did without telling us what those things were. So,
Oh, well, for example, with the sausage sizzles, we weren't doing anything like that because I don't want to. I don't want the crowd to feel like they're there for their money.
yeah,
Right.
right.
I don't want anyone coming along thinking.
So you mean having like sausage sizzles at the 420s rally?
Yeah.
So like a presence where you're
we-
making money.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we weren't doing any of that, but then other people started coming in and trying to, hey, we've got a crowd here, let's make some money. And for starters, we haven't got any permits or anything like that. So we're not allowed to do any. I mean, look, we're not really allowed to do what we're doing anyway
Yep.
without permits. Okay. Now the reason we're getting away with it is because we've said to the council and the police, hey, look, we are going to go out of our way. We're going to bend over backwards to make sure that no one is upset. We're going to make sure that no one's putting tent pegs in the ground. We're going to make sure that no one's tying stuff to the trees. We're going to make sure that we pick up all our rubbish at the end of the day, and we're going to do everything we can possibly do to make sure that you guys aren't getting complaints.
Yeah.
And they've kind of gone, yep, hey, that's cool. Okay, and I've actually had a couple of different council people say to me, look, unofficially, we all think you're doing a really good thing.
Yep.
Just keep with the tidying up, etc., and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I guess that was my panic a little bit. As the crowd gets bigger, it's harder to contain that. But still, we had 5,000 or so. I mean, I don't know, it's hard to estimate.
Yeah.
Last year we had 4.5, and this year was definitely bigger. I think we had 5, somewhere between 5 and 6.
Yeah.
There was a lot of rubbish at the end of the day, but that's all right. I got it all on the back of the ute, and we took it all away, so the gardens were left clean. Everyone, I mean, look, the crowd did a great job cleaning up, but they piled all the rubbish in bags around the bins.
Yep.
So, at about 10 o'clock I went in there with a ute and I
Cleaned it all up.
the rubbish up from the bins, and that was a tedious, painful job. But anyway, that's okay, it wasn't too bad. It took me a while to separate it all and recycle it, but I'm not quite sure why I did that. But anyway, if you're going to do something, do it properly.
For sure.
Yeah.
So Victoria has been, on the cusp of a lot of speculation lately with changes and proposed changes to medicinal cannabis laws here.
Yeah.
What do you see happening in the future with the proposed changes and implementations, and what's your kind of stance and view on how medicinal cannabis could be dealt with?
I think, and I'm not going to be really popular for saying this, but I think the whole medicinal cannabis reform that's going on in Australia at the moment has very little to do with any activism or the community. I think it is all government and media led.
Yeah.
And yes, of course, the media are focusing in on different people and events within the community, but they're directing the spin, and they're controlling it all, and the various surveys that get asked are worded in such a way so that 95% of the population who don't have much insight just go, oh yeah, and give the right answer.
Yeah, totally.
I think the medical... what I've basically been saying is that they're not legalising medical cannabis, they're medicalising cannabis prohibition.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's I've just come back. We were having a chat before we started recording, and I've just come back from spending a bit of time in California, and their medicinal laws have been in place for a long time, and this year it's 99% they'll switch over to recreational cannabis as well. Now, we were talking about a subject that's obviously near and dear to your heart, and that's treat buds like beer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about treating buds like beer.
Okay, well, treat bud like beer is, I guess, the idea is a response has grown from looking at the California model, the treat marijuana like wine initiatives they had was probably where that came from, and I thought, hang on a minute, let's I kind of looked at that model and I thought, yeah, that sort of makes sense, and then I thought, but wine's a little bit confusing, and I wouldn't mind Australianising it a little bit. I thought, Aussies love beer, and treat bud like beer, why not? And we all understand how the beer laws work. Everyone in Australia, no one's confused about that, no one panics about that.
Yeah, it's a sensible mainframe to kind of insert cannabis laws into as well.
It is. It's a good sensible structure. Yeah, where you have corporate products, boutique products, and home brews, and the same works perfectly well for cannabis. With you could have your corporate products like Marlboro Green, and your boutique products like which could be produced by licensed micro groweries, just like the licensed micro breweries. And then the only additional infrastructure you'd need for cannabis would be something like a therapeutic buds administration to oversee production and testing and all the things that need to be overseen for products which are being sold as medical products. And so just like beer, we'd have venues where you could consume on premises, like a Dutch coffee shop type thing, which essentially is like a pub.
Yep.
But for cannabis. And you would also have bud shops, or you could have restaurants or bistros where they have a bud garden, or that sort of thing. And then if you wanted to buy medical cannabis products, they would have to be sold through a dispensary where there is some sort of a qualified person to dispense medical products, like the pharmacy's situation we have. And then the dispensary could of course would be governed by the Therapeutic Buds Administration. So you may end up having bud shops that are like a big pharmacy, and then at the back of the bud shop there'd be a dispensary where you could go to get your prescription cannabis. And that sort of covers everyone's needs.
Yep.
And that creates plenty of opportunity for tax income for the government, and it also allows for tax-free, non-commercial, unlimited home grows where people can grow as much as they like at home and share it with their friends.
Yep. Just like you can bottle as much beer at home.
Exactly.
Yep.
You can brew as much beer as you want and share it around, so long as there's no commercial aspect to it.
Excellent.
So it allows for everyone. It means that people who simply have low finances and can't afford to go out and buy the commit, they still have the ability to either grow their own or be given cannabis from friends who can grow.
Yeah.
So no one's missing out. But at the same time, it does provide a huge opportunity for tax income for the government.
And it's a model that we're starting to see unfold all over the world, not just throughout different states in the US, but different countries are adopting different drug policies, and we're starting to see not just tax benefits, but health benefits as well.
Well, look, I think one of the things I like to simplify things down as much as I possibly can, right? And when it comes to cannabis, I kind of figured out that as soon as you say, "Oh, cannabis is good because of da da da," right? You're inviting someone to say, "Oh, but cannabis is bad because of da da da."
Yeah.
And I started thinking, well, actually, there aren't any reasons for cannabis to be prohibited. All there are is a bunch of arguments, right? Now, if someone says cannabis causes psychosis, rather than going through a stupid debate about what is psychosis, or or does it or doesn't, or this study or that study, right? Okay, let's just say, okay, cool, cannabis does cause psychosis. Let's just assume that cannabis absolutely causes psychosis. So psychosis is a health risk, right? It's a mental health risk, but it's a health risk.
Yep.
Now I think pretty much everyone in society would agree that death is the ultimate health risk, right? Okay, there's nothing more dangerous than death, But as a society, we understand and accept that death is not a reason to prohibit things. You can smoke tobacco legally despite knowing that will kill you if you do it, death isn't a reason to prohibit tobacco. So essentially psychosis, that's not a reason to prohibit cannabis. It's bullshit. All it actually is a justification for the prejudiced belief. Okay, so, you analyse it, there is no reason for prohibition. Full stop. Prohibition hurts good people. end prohibition, we don't actually have to talk about cannabis. You know, cannabis could be as useless as a soggy brown paper bag. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The simple fact is there are people who use cannabis, and prohibition is a policy which inflicts harms on those people and beyond. I mean, not only by hurting those people, you're also hurting the rest of society. There are plenty of people who don't use cannabis who have been hurt because family members have been punished, or, you know, families are broken up because of prohibition, and you know, the different, like the family court, or people being jailed, or people losing jobs, or, you know, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, if you take that further, prohibition, it's a policy based in prejudice. Okay, it leads to discrimination. You got to pee in a cup to get a job. You know, what's going on there? It leads to persecution. You've got to look over your shoulders to make sure there's no cops watching. You've got to, you know, not that I do, but like in the back of my mind, anyone who comes to the house, I'm thinking, right, which is just a result of prohibition.
Yeah.
You know, all of those things, and then the oppression of the culture, you know, and then you've got the stigma, the judgment. So you've got, like, for example, family members. Like, everyone who smokes dope will have a family member that they know they've got to be discreet in front, you know, all of that sort of stuff, right? That's where the mental health problems come from. That's the shit that's making people unhappy, right? And that's the shit that is pushing people to smoke more dope.
Yeah.
Right, which is part of what the 420 picnics are about. The idea, we're not there to bang on about how awesome cannabis is. Like, we all know cannabis is awesome, but
Yep.
hey, next subject, right? So the idea of the picnics, though, is for everyone to come together and be totally accepted without any judgment, without anyone looking down at them, without anyone saying no or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Just be totally free of that shit.
Yeah.
And it's not until you get into that atmosphere that you realise just how oppressive all of that rubbish is, right? And you get that sense of freedom, and it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah. 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
from going from California, where you can, you know, openly smoke a joint in a park, it's no problem whatsoever. It's as common as seeing somebody have a beer in Australia at a barbecue, to coming back to Australia and, like you say, you know, looking over your shoulder and is there anybody around? It breeds a very different feeling, and it creates a completely different vibe around the culture as well.
Right.
It doesn't get to be as open or as liberated in saying, hey, we're here and this is
Right.
kind of some of the stuff we can do.
So, and when you get that environment where you are free to be yourself, right? And this is what I'm seeing with so many of the people who are coming to the events, is that, like, the first time they come along, they're, you know, a lot of them are really awkward because they don't get out of the house, you know, they like, the prejudice and everything, it's really, like, I myself, I know, I don't like leaving the house because, you know, if I drive, what if I get pulled over? There's so much anxiety going on just in, so a lot of people come along and they're awkward and they don't know anyone, or they might just have one friend, but they're both a bit, you know, and then it doesn't matter which direction you walk in. If you bang into a circle sitting on the ground, you can sit down with them and they'll be, hey, cool, here, have a pipe, you know, and it's just this really, really welcoming, it's a really good community vibe.
Yeah.
And then the second time you see them, they're confident and everything. And, you know, the third time, they're helping, they're running the thing, they're running around picking up rubbish, it's really good to see. It's people are coming out of themselves, you know, and the other thing I've noticed, right, which it's hard to quantify and hard to prove or anything, but I don't think they're smoking as much weed. Like, I really don't. I think 2014 or 2013, 2014
Yep.
was the first April 20th Flagstaff, because 2013 we did Treasury Gardens.
Yep.
So 2014 at Flagstaff Gardens, there was so much smoke. There was a cloud over the gardens, right? It was dense,
Yeah.
you know, the visibility was 30 metres. It was like there was so much smoke.
Yeah.
There wasn't that much smoke this year. There wasn't, you know, it's getting less. And I think people are coming in, and yeah, everyone's still coming in and smoking dope.
Yeah.
But because there's this really happy vibe going on, you don't need to smoke as much dope, you know.
Yeah.
1 or 2 joints is sweet when
Yeah.
you're smoking dope. It's not like, let's smoke 8 joints to get happy.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing. If we give the community total acceptance, we won't smoke as much dope, you know.
Do you think, or do you see a day where total acceptance is there? Is it close?
Yeah,
Is
I think
it far
so.
away?
I think so. I mean, look, it's going to get to the point where there are always going to be some people who don't like cannabis, right?
Sure.
And you know, maybe 50 years time they'll all die out, and we can, you know, have a totally different paradigm. But it'll become kind of like become kind of like racism or homophobia, where there are still people out there who think stupid shit, but they know that they've got to shut up most of the time. You know, they know.
Yeah.
And if they do come out and say stuff, the general attitude is going to be, "Oh, stop being a jerk."
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it'll get to that point, and it's just a matter of understanding that it's not actually about cannabis. It's a prejudice against the people, no different to homophobia or racism or sexism or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that the kind of stoner stigma is something that holds the cannabis movement back?
Yeah, that's part of the oppression and the negative propaganda. Whereas the reality is, right, that the stoners are the Snoop Dogs, the you know, the best movies, the best music, the
Some
best
of the cannabis
books,
entrepreneurs as well.
Right,
Yeah.
that's it. The stoners are the creative thinkers who are the innovators, who are driving the wonderful diversity of everything that we've got. You know, we're the ones who make life not boring. Right, so, you know, they may want to laugh at us and put us down, but reality is they're jealous of our creativity.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, I come home to an election year, and cannabis is a hot topic everywhere at the moment.
Yeah. Free the leaf? No, free the leaf, I don't agree with that. No. The reason I said that is because we have the free leaf logo, and it is a bit of a gimmick, but it's very recognisable, and it's a pretty clear message, you know.
Yeah. Tell us about message. Tell us about the free leaf. Tell us what you're doing.
Well, I'm standing as a candidate for the seat of Melbourne for the Drug Law Reform Australia Party.
So, if to put you on a preference list, do you know how somebody goes about doing that at the moment?
Well, you have to live in the electorate for starters, which is and I'll just be on the list. I'm not sure how many candidates there are in Melbourne at this point in time. Although that's going to sound silly when this goes to air, because I should know by then. But I know I'll be up against Adam Band, from the Greens, and then there's the Labor and Liberal candidate, and Lewis Freeman Harrison from the Sex Party. And if you want to vote for Lewis, by all means go ahead and do that, because the Sex Party have got some great policies.
In terms of policies, what kind of policies are you looking at?
Look, the drug law reform is pretty much a single issue party, and we're saying that we should end the war on drugs, full stop. That prohibition is not an appropriate way of dealing with people who choose to use drugs. Now, the only specific model that we are putting forward is treat bud like beer, which is obviously in relation to cannabis. Now, there would have to be different models and different systems, for a range of different models for a range of different drugs, obviously, and that would need to be looked at on a case-by-case basis by experts in the community and users of those drugs, and anyone involved. So treat bud like beer. I mean, look, cannabis is 70-odd% of the illicit drug market in Australia anyway. So that's the main one to focus on. So treat bud like beer is the policy there.
Do they have any stats or anything like that on what sort of revenue is potentially being missed out on in Australia?
Look, there are a few prediction models have been worked out by various people, and there's all sorts of argument about how it would affect this and that and the other, but the figures are fairly substantial. They're in the hundreds of millions. I don't know whether it'd be 200 or 900 or whatever. But and also, if we look at other places like Colorado, we can see the revenue that has actually been raised.
And how they're using that revenue as well.
That's
I mean,
right.
do you foresee channeling cannabis-driven tax revenue in specific ways, or would it just become a part of the general tax stream?
Look, I think it would be nice to drive it in specific ways. But
I mean, does it give us more of a standing because in Colorado, they're talking about a couple of $1 million to homeless projects and stuff like that, and it really makes the cannabis community have a good front for everybody on a global scale.
Absolutely. Look, I guess that's something that everyone would need to discuss and work out what happens there. But I think the main thing is that we've made the switch from the issue being a drain on the public purse to being a contributor to the public purse. I guess another thing which is really, I think, important and worth pointing out to anyone listening is that an enormous amount of police resources currently go into enforcing the cannabis laws. Now, I don't think that if you change the cannabis laws, the police all of a sudden are going to save millions and millions of dollars. I mean, we're not talking about specific expenditure. There's infrastructure and stuff that's involved. So, but the money won't be a saving as such, but the resource allocation will mean that police resources will be able to be put towards things that are going to be more helpful to society than busting some potheads.
Sure. I guess when people talk about cannabis in Australia, there's one town that always comes to mention, and Nimbin, has always been a centre of controversy. For good and bad. It's been the home of various different movements over the time. I know you've been affiliated with them in the past as well.
With the hemp party there.
What's the difference in what you're doing now as to what you were doing with the hemp party?
Look, I guess the hemp party are very focused on promoting cannabis and promoting debate and promoting medical cannabis, and I guess the main difference is that I'm not promoting cannabis. I'm really not that interested in cannabis. Provided I've got a mix going, I'm happy. My main interest is actually the people, and not only do I want to see the oppression lifted, not only do I want to see an end to the persecution and an end to the prejudice and end to the discrimination, but I actually want to see the people of the community really shine. And I think they're amazing people. I use the catchphrase "good people," but they're beyond that. They're amazing. They're creative. They're beautiful. They've got good hearts. They've got you can see it in their eyes. They've got They're lovely people, and they're a community that I'm really proud to be a part of.
Yeah.
And I think that most people belonging to that community, they really should feel proud of themselves and not any shame at all. And so yeah, that's the key thing I want to do, is I want to get rid of that shame.
Yeah.
We can all start feeling good about ourselves, which ironically will allow us to be happier and not need as much weed. So you know, it's win-win all round, really. I mean, even Bernie Finn couldn't argue with that goal.
Yeah.
And I think it just makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, we're wasting so much money being horrible to ourselves.
Totally. I guess one of the kind of the innocent bystanders of the war on drugs, the war on cannabis, is its cousin hemp. And with the opening of the cannabis industry comes the opening of a legitimate hemp industry as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that a lot of people pass over in this whole debate, and as to the potential revenue and also life-saving and...
Well, I don't think people quite understand just how massive it is, and,
Yeah.
and I don't like to go on about all of that, because it's really easy for people to go, it's a cannabis witness, he's here to bore us silly, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, the reality is that, like, carbon negative housing, who the hell can do carbon negative housing? But with hemp you can.
Yeah.
You know, and carbon neutral fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can produce it at 1/10 of the cost of petrol. It's just too sensible. My prediction is that prohibition will finish, and within about 3 years, the whole world will be going, "Holy shit! What were we thinking?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty obvious conclusion to see.
Yeah.
And exciting to watch it all unfold.
It is. It is. I just it'd be really nice if we could finish it all off with as few arrests as possible and the least amount of drama. And you know, I think the police are enjoying the good relationship as well, because
Yeah.
they're kind of sick of having society hating on them. And you know, this
Sure.
is the law effectively creates a huge divide.
Yeah, and look, we hope to talk to some police over the course of this podcast, but you know, surely they're seeing the results as much as we are, and you know.
Well, it's self-evident. On April 20, they elected, knowing that there were 5,000 odd people there, all smoking dope.
Yeah.
The police elected not to even turn up,
Yeah.
which I take as a great sign. The police are confident enough in us as a crowd, as a community. They're confident enough in us as being respectful people,
Yeah.
that they didn't even come to keep an eye on it.
That's pretty amazing.
And so that's a step above no arrests.
Yeah.
I'm really happy with that.
So we're going to wrap that up. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for your hospitality. Thanks for having us out here. It's been
My pleasure.
nice to catch up. Nice to meet you. So where can people find you? What's happening in the near future? Any messages for the cannabis community at large out there?
The third Sunday of September will be the next 420 picnic at Flagstaff Gardens.
Yep.
So come along to that. If you're a bit of a green thumb, you know, a lot of people like to swap seeds and that sort of thing in the spring
Yep.
picnics. So that's a good one to be at.
Cool.
And melbournefcc.com.
Yep.
You
Check
can
it out.
Look us up online. We've got a website there which is coming along quite nicely. There's a lot more stuff I want to get up there on the website. But, you know, there's a reasonable lot there to look at so far.
Twitter.
Matt Riley FCC.
Yep.
Instagram, Matt Riley FCC.
Yep. Matt Riley FCC, that's the thing to look up.
Yeah, or just Matt Riley on Facebook.
Excellent.
Free Cannabis Victoria.
Cool.
Group and page.
Yep.
And
information for voters, what do they need to know?
Information for voters. The Drug Law Reform Australia. Look for the logo, which is the word free with a leaf on the ballot. And you can vote for various candidates. Greg Chipp in the Senate in Victoria, and then there's a number of other candidates. I'm in the seat of Melbourne for the lower house, so I'm standing against Adam Banch. If you live in the inner city, in the electorate of Melbourne, vote one Matt Riley and vote below the line, and make sure you throw a 2 in the sex party box, because Lewis Freeman Harrison is a very worthy candidate as well. And I think that's
awesome, Matt. Thanks very much, man. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, look forward to it.
Yeah,
and thanks very much, everybody. We'll be in touch.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Beautiful.
Thanks, man.
So there you are, folks. Our interview with Matt Riley. I guess a couple of things. I mean, the treating beer like buds is just such a sensible idea. It fits into a framework that here in Australia we know, we're familiar with. It's not scary. Look, it makes a lot of sense. And as we discussed, the benefits are there for everybody to share in. Even if you're not a cannabis consumer, the revenue that is developed from cannabis, for the state, for the country, whatever the case may be, is definitely undeniable. And the results that are coming out around the world in places where legalization, decriminalization is happening, they're speaking for themselves, and they're things that we'll go into more on further episodes, and we'll look for people that are authorities on those kind of subjects to talk about. If you didn't catch it, the best place is to catch Matt. You can get him on Twitter at matrileyfcc, Instagram Matt Riley FCC, Facebook Matt Riley. He also has the Free Cannabis Victoria page, and of course the Drug Law Reform website, www.druglawreform.com.au. And don't forget, if you are in the seat of Melbourne, City of Melbourne, and voting at the upcoming elections, which of course we hope you do, vote one for Matt Riley. What's coming up in the next episode? We're going to head out to check out the world premiere screening, A Life of Its Own, The Truth About Medical Marijuana. I'm just going to read this verbatim from the website. The links are there on our Facebook, and I'll put them in the episode notes for this as well. A Life of Its Own is based on Helen Kapolos's personal quest to discover some medical truths about the life-giving and enhancing properties of marijuana. Her journey began after a year as a senior reporter on a major commercial network, and being moved by one young man's anguish at his shame of having to resort to medical marijuana to treat his terminal illness. His story, detailed here in full, attracted the attention of government and prompted Australians to bravely speak out. The reaction was unprecedented. This documentary takes the story further, contrasting Australia's medical cannabis black market with Israel, where the largest human trials of medicinal cannabis take place as a legal federal program. It probes the socio-political and legal consequences of the debate and turns a scientific investigation into a compelling human narrative and a clarion call for change. So the world premiere of that is going to be held in Melbourne this weekend. That's Saturday the 18th of June. You can catch it at the Palace Cinemas in Westgarth. It's playing around the country as well, in Canberra and Sydney. Canberra, Wednesday the 22nd of June, and Sydney, Saturday the 25th of June. The Canberra-Sydney shows are followed up by Q&A. The Melbourne world premiere is obviously going to be attended by the local cannabis community, so we'll be reaching out to a few people there. We'll be coming back and discussing the film and what it means and what it does. Apart from what I've read on the website, I don't know much, but I'm excited to be heading down there and checking it out. So that will be a part of our next episode, will be the review of that film. Stay tuned, because who knows who may make an appearance in the discussion afterwards. Once again, don't forget to check us out at all the places: Twitter at 420 Herbalized, Instagram _Herbalized_podcast, Facebook.com/Herbalized420. We're on YouTube, we're on iTunes, we are on Patreon. If you like our thing, subscribe, share, maybe even throw a little bit of money our way. That's all amazing. And just to finish off, I'm going to put it out there. We are young and fresh. This is episode 1. We're always looking for contributions, for guests. If you're out there, if you want to get in touch with us, our email is herbalized420@gmail.com. You can reach out for us through Facebook. You know, if you've got ideas, things you'd like to see, any information, we love to hear from you. A logo design competition. So what we'd like to do is get some merch happening, maybe some t-shirts or some stickers or just some cool stuff, you know. And we know that our cannabis community are artistic. And so look, if you have some ideas, if there's something you'd like to talk about, throw it our way. Yeah, we'll print some t-shirts out, and we can look at like a money share. You know, you can get however many dollars it is, X amount from each shirt sold, and we'll work it out. We want to be fair, we want to grow the thing, we want to make everything. So we're going to sign out now. It was great putting this together. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, any feedback, send it my way. Torty you can get me at herbalized420@gmail.com, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode. See you guys later.
I wonder if for me